A sad tale's best for winter. Hello, my fellow theater people. Here with you for the penultimate week of Shaketube 2019. This is an event hosted by Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, Lukas at Totally Pretentious, and Steve Donoghue. And they've come together to select each week a play. So for three plays each week for the first 3 weeks of September, this being the last of the group plays. They've done Measure for Measure this week, Winter's Tale, which I'm doing in this video, and Henry VIII, which I'm sadly not doing, but I will get back around to, Steve, at some point. And then next week it'll be the two Gentlemen of Verona, which they'll all read together, and the entire booktube, the entire YouTube will of course all drop everything and read and discuss together. And it's a massive system-wide event. That is, I'm sure, what is going to happen. So yes. So thank you guys in advance for all this. And let's talk about A Winter's Tale. A Winter's Tale, which it's interesting. As always, I am enjoying kind of having kind of additional reading on. I read the plays, I kind of get my own reaction, and then I go along and let other people's brains help me prompt my own brain. So that's with Emma Smith here with This is Shakespeare, which is the ebook experience. There is Tina Packer, Women of Will, and Marjorie Garber, who I don't have her book, but her essays, her Harvard lectures that she did a while ago are online, and she has one on Winter's Tale. So, and one of those critics, I can't remember which one of them, wasn't Tina Packer, talked about how actually this is one of the few plays that actually does have sort of a surprise in its very last scene that you could actually say maybe there actually is a spoiler for a Shakespeare play that would be a pity to take away from someone who hadn't actually already seen the play. And it's a fairly popular play to put on. I think they were talking about it being maybe, I think in my Arden edition of the complete works here in the introduction, it says it's probably the second most popular of the kind of the late romance plays of Behind the Tempest to be actually put on. But there's probably enough people out there who don't know how it ends. So spoilers for this play that was written or first produced in 1610, 11 or whatever. But I would you want to get hit with that. You want to get hit with that. I think maybe afresh. So you've been warned. So the play opens in Sicily, Scylla. I always want to say Sicily. Where the king of Bohemia is visiting the king of Scylla, Leontes, and his wife Hermione, and the king the Leontes really wants his friend Polixenes to stay, but he won't stay. But then he gets his wife Hermione to kind of convince him to stay, and Polixenes kind of talks about how they were young, kind of frisky, just innocent as lambs guys who when in their youth, who they knew each other that young. And it's like, oh, but you've tripped since then, sir. And it's like, yes, basically we puberty hit, and we got to know women and stuff like that. Always the women is the line. Oh, darn women. We all just be so innocent otherwise. Yeah. If you believe that kind of crap. However, so yes, Hermione convinces Polixenes, just yes, he'll stay. But the king, it's like, you got him to stay, and she kind of watched that interchange in between them. And Garber does a really good thing of Hermione flirting with Polixenes about this. Oh, we hit puberty and we became enamored of women. That's like the point where Leontes is watching them, and he gets insanely jealous, and it builds and builds in him really super fast, too hot really quickly, and he goes basically batshit in this. He gets his main dude Camillo. He says he's they've cuckolded me. Hermione is 9 months pregnant. Polixenes has been there for 9 months and is like, oh, she's cuckolded me. And he's even looking at his son Mamillion now, his young son Mamillion now. It's like, are you actually my son? It's lucky that everyone says you look like me, or else I'd be like, he's really crazy. And he says like, yeah, Camilio, you gotta poison Polixenes. And Camilio's like, yes, my lord. And he goes to Polixenes and like warns him, like, my lord has gone crazy. Let's get the heck out of here. And so they get the heck out of here. It's probably under the impression that the Leontes wouldn't actually harm Hermione, but Polixenes just kind of goes up, and them taking off for him is a confirmation of their guilt. He sends for the oracle, but it's basically like they have a trial, and he's like, nobody's gonna talk in her defense, because that would make you guilty, and I will kill you if you talk in her defense. And her word is dirt. And Hermione kind of comes to this thing, and it's like, you won't believe me. You've already kind of cast my name down. I am completely innocent. I have no idea what they did. She's supported by her friend Paulina, who in this, it's like, she is completely innocent. The king Leontes is having none of this. Hermione calls for the oracle, and indeed the oracle comes. They come back with a message from the oracle. It gets unsealed, and it says, the queen is faithful. The king is a insanely jealous tyrant, and that if he doesn't reverse this, he will have no heir until the thing which is lost is found again. And he says, screw the gods, screw Apollo, which is, it's the biggest blasphemy. He says, screw it, and I don't believe it. At which point, messenger comes in, and its young son Mamillion is dead from, I guess, self-harm. We don't get I don't think we get the details. He is dead from all of this. Hermione swoons. The king is like, oh my God, I have messed up everything. Oh my God, I was crazy. No, kind of help her. They take Hermione off the screen. Her friend Paulina comes back and says she is dead. And he is like, and Leontes is now completely done a flip again, and is just like, oh my God, this is, I'm gonna basically spend the rest of my life weeping in sorrow. Take me to their bodies, and we'll bury them together, and I will just basically weep over them every day from now on to the end. Unfortunately, in the midst of this, he had also sent off their because he had actually imprisoned Hermione for the rest of the term of her birth. They showed him the daughter, and for a second there, you think he would have flipped, but no, he doesn't flip. And he says, no, you're going to take this baby, and you're going to cast her out. I mean, he talks about, basically dashing her brains out, about burning her, but in the end, it's like, yeah, just take her out into the wilderness and abandon her. And what will happen to her. So they've sent them off well before this. So it's too late to save this unnamed baby. Antiguus, the husband of Paulina, is the one who's been sent on this duty. He has gone off. He gets a visitation. He says, he brings the babe to Bohemia, which is like, what, I guess, if you think that it's the cuckoldry is actually true, this would be the home of this baby's father. And it's like, Antiguus says, like, he brings her onto shore and says, come, poor babe, I have heard but not believed the spirits of the dead may walk again. If such a thing be, thy mother appeared to me last night, for never was a dream so like a waking. To me comes a creature, sometimes her head on one side, some on the other. I never saw a vessel of like sorrow, so filled and so becoming in pure white robes. And, the ghost says to him, good Antigonus, since fate, against thy better disposition, hath made thy person for the thrower out of my poor babe, according to thine oath, places remote enough are in Bohemia. There weep and leave it crying, for the babe is counted lost forever. Perdita, I prithee thee, call it. So he names the baby. and so he leaves the babe with basically something that says this is what the name of the baby is, with gold, with I think there's a necklace in there, probably a necklace of his mother. Leaves the thing, and then happens the most famous line of stage direction in Shakespeare. And everyone, all the critics talk about this. Is the most famous line is he basically he hears what it's like, a savage clamor. Well, I may get aboard. This is the chase. I am gone forever. And the stage direction is exit, pursued by a bear, which, like, there's been no introduction to a bear, so you just have to assume, at least in my mind, that a bear of some sort of representation of a bear, or an actual bear, has erupted out of the side of the stage and then chases the poor actor off the thing. And indeed, there is a description by one of the shepherds who does indeed end up finding the baby, the son of the shepherd who finds the baby, the son of poor Antigonus, basically being ripped apart by the bear, and the bear is basically still eating the corpse of Antigonus when he leaves it. You know, he's consuming him. He's dead at that point, and the ship is also consumed in the raging storm. And then, because this is a romance, and one of these things that seems to be romances are known for there's no unity of time here. Suddenly 16 years passes, and 16 years pass, and conveniently enough, this is given Perdita, the babe Perdita, who indeed has been adopted by these shepherds, who take the gold, like, wow, we're rich, holy cap, and has been raised as, basically it's the definite, like, your prototypical, shepherd maiden who's like awesome and is, secretly nobly born, and is now 16, which we get for that time is like, now we're into courtship, into marrying, into puberty time. So that the boys are interesting, and you can legally get married. So we've skipped over all the babe stuff and all the kind of the developing steps. And of course, as a shepherdess, who's fallen in love with her, but the son of Polixenes, who is himself disguised himself as sort of this figure to fall in love with her. They fall in love. He wants to get married. His father's like, well, you've been neglecting all your duties at court. So he and Camillo, who is now, kind of his right-hand man, they disguise themselves. They find out that, yes, he's actually about to get married. He wants his father to kind of perform they want to perform the wedding thing right there. Polixenes freaks out, tosses off the thing. Is like, no way you're getting married to some humble shepherdess. As I think Garber says in the thing, is like, he doesn't know he's in a fairy tale. Of course, this wonderful shepherdess is obviously a royal person in disguise. But no, that's not the case. So, and he threatens he threatens his son Florenzel, that you do this, or you're out of you'll no longer be my son, you'll lose royalty and all that sort of stuff. And of course, this is the kind of the romance. He's like, no, I choose love, and they take off, and they go off to Camilla, who is now aiding this young couple, takes them back off to Sicilia again, where they get introduced to the father who's like, wow, the young Perdita is like, there's a very awkward moment of basically, she's really hot. Wow. Want to be with me kind of a thing, which Paulina immediately jumps in and says, no, that's not going to happen. She's for him, kind of push off stage. And, by the way, by the way, I've got an artwork to show you. And they off stage at this point, we get a report that, actually they figured out that Perdita is actually the king's daughter. So we don't have an awkward thing of, you were my daughter and I thought you were hot. We don't have that on stage. We just have this reveal happen off stage, which is good because we're going to have more reveals coming on later, which this kind of helps for the add the punch to. And so, yes, the father and the daughter are reunited. And the father, for Lorenza Polixenes, Polixenes comes over, and it's like, oh well, it's okay, she's royal now, so it's gonna be a happy thing. And at this point, Polina says, I've got something to show you guys. It's this sculpture that has been worked on by this great Italian master. It's a sculpture of Hermione, and I want to show it to you, and you'll be able to see your mother, Perdita, what your mother looked like, Perdita, and all that. And so they takes her to this place, a place that is noted by some other characters off, just as a matter of talking about it. It's like, oh, she's been going there like a couple of times every day for like the last 16 years. It's like, oh, I wonder what that's about. And so she takes her there, and it's like she reveals the statue, and it's a perfect statue of Hermione, so lifelike. And there's like three times that Leontes is like, I want to touch it. It's like, oh my God, it's like, oh my God, it's her. It's like, I want to drop to her feet and beg her forgiveness, the statue's forgiveness, as if she were Hermione. And Polina's like, oh well, don't touch her because it's just newly painted. You don't want to hurt her, or you'll get paint on your lips, or if you kiss her or something like that. And three times we kind of do this, and finally it's like, okay, well, this might drive you insane, this might be crazy, but I have the spell, and that I will do this. But what is her great lines in this is like, so she says to the statue, it's like, you must have faith, or where is it? It is required you do awake your faith, then all stand still, or those that think it is unlawful business I am about, let them depart. Because there is a sort of a thing of, you might think I'm a witch, you might think this is not holy, but this is holy stuff. And then it's like, music, awake her, strike. Music, 'tis time, descend, be stone no more, approach, strike all that look upon with marvel. Come, I'll fill your grave up. Nay, stir, come away, bequeath to death your numbness, for from him dear life redeems you. You perceive, she stirs. Hermione comes down. Start not, her actions shall be holy, as you hear my spell is lawful. To Leontes, do not shun her until you see her die again, for then you kill her double. Nay, present your hand. When she was young, you wooed her. Now in age, is she become the suitor? And so in this moment of thing, the statue comes to life and comes down and takes Leontes' hand and is warm, and she speaks, and she has her questions are for her daughter about, like, where did tell me, mine own, where hast thou been preserved? Where livest? How found thy father's court? For thou shalt hear that I, knowing by Paulina that the oracle gave hope that thou wast in being, have preserved myself to see the issue. And so we end the play with Leontes penitent and having this with his wife again. We have Perdita found and joined with Florenza. Camillo ends up being married to Pauline at the end of the thing. So it has kind of the comedy structure at the end, and that's the play. That's the play. And I mean, my reaction at that end part, I think it's probably a common reaction of this, and this is just strictly from me reading it this time. I didn't get to actually see a production of it. Was I'm a crier, and I cried. There's something about that at the end where it's like, I'm not Leontes. I'm not insanely jealous, destroying a family, but just that idea of you've really horribly hurt someone, or you've, someone that's you've lost in your life, whether actually lost, which I have, or just lost in you did something that you deeply regret, and that just you lost them to it, and just the idea of getting that second chance, that the chance for redemption, and hard won. There was 16 years of him being in mourning, and indeed in the play it talks about how other people were there saying, oh, you should just get remarried. I mean, you're the king. I'm sure there's there is anxiety within this kingdom of like, if you don't get remarried, there won't be an heir, and it'll screw all of us. But Pauline is like, no, don't get married. Don't get married. You continue to mourn. And it's like, there's something about that just kind of really, really got me, that there's such the emotional punch there at the end. And it's something where I saw that as despite me saying like all these kind of like little hidden signals here, is like, I took that as a rebirth, that Hermione was dead and came back to life. Maybe it's because I'm a fantasy reader, the fantastical, even though Shakespeare again is always good at kind of balancing things out. You have stuff like, okay, Mamillion actually did die. He actually did die. He's dead. He does not come back at the end of the play. You have stuff like the thing I read about Antigone's having that dream of Hermione coming to him in a dream, and it's like, live people don't come to you in a dream. It's like, it's only dead people do. And he named the child Perdita, one who is lost, thus fulfilling the oracle's that oracle's prophecy. Now you can obviously see within this that Paulina has been manipulating things, and you could see a thing of like, yep, Hermione was just in this house for 16 years or something, and it's all been kind of a ruse. Though the first thing that the king says after all this befalls him is, okay, I want to see the dead bodies of these two people and I want to bury them. So there's Shakespeare, that's the Shakespeare, it's the Heisenberg cat of things, of you can have both. You can have both in a play like this. Marjorie Garber is very much, when I was watching her lecture on this, she's very much of Hermione. Hermione did not die. She did not die. It's just straight that Pauline has kind of manipulated this, and it's great stagecraft of the three. Are you sure? Are you sure? No, I'll cover it. Are you sure? It's like, it works the king up to really get that effect, that theatrical effect, which is also working on you as the reader or as the audience member as you're watching that. It works you up. It worked me up into this kind of like, oh my God, heart in my throat kind of moment when she then does just simply step off that plinth, the statue, that statue platform, and takes Leonte's hands. It just like emotionally, it got me. So she's very much of, no, it's not. This is a realist thing. Though it's funny because it is a play about, it is a winter's tale, and a winter's tale is, I guess it's defined as kind of it's one of those things stories you would tell at wintertime, which was like an implausibly romantic tale, or a fairy tale. And I mean, this has very much got a lot of kind of the fairy tale elements into it. You've got the super jealous husband who destroys everyone. You've got the lost princess who's disguised as shepherdess and falls in love with a handsome prince, and then is discovered, of course, to be a princess in the end. You've got ghosts, you've got bears, you've got it's got all of it in. There was a hilarious thing in here. There's apparently been a lot of ink spilled over whether in those original productions of Shakespeare, whether that was an actual bear on stage, because sad thing of the time, bear baiting was such a big thing, and dogs fighting for their lives against bears fighting for their lives against dogs, and I guess dogs vice versa, for the entertainment of the masses was a big thing. Was a big thing at the time. King James was apparently given 2 white bears. I don't know if they were polar bears, but 2 white bears as kind of the ultimate kind of status symbol around this time. So it's that sort of thing. It's interesting. Tina Packer talks about bears and like hibernation, so that bear was very much seen as a symbol of rebirth, which this is at that being pursued by the bear with the baby, and all this death is happening, but we have a baby. We have the symbol of rebirth at the same time as we're burying poor Antigonus. He's the very last death in this play, and then from then on we're getting discoveries and rebirths, and perhaps happiness. It's interesting. Tina Packer, in her kind of interpretation of the play, this is the women of will following the feminine in Shakespeare's plays. She sort of breaks it down as and no spoilers for all the people who are actually reading. I guess spoilers. I'm not going to get too deep into the chapter because this happens later on in the book, but when she actually talks about the Winter's Tale. But I'm going to talk about it now because that's when I've actually read the play. Of the idea of Hermione is kind of, it's taken three women and a good man to affect actual kind of the positive change in this, like to wrest it away from kind of this horrible, destructive, insane kind of power of one insanely jealous, very primal jealousy of this guy, which cuckoldry, and all this kind of cuck nonsense that we get now is I mean, it's obviously it's pushing. It's a word used to push buttons on that side of things, on kind of the male misogynistic combative side, that side. But the cuckoldry, the idea that male anxiety over, oh my God, I'm being displaced, that my wife is having some other man's child, and all that nonsense. We have these 3 women and a good man who are affecting change, is how Packer puts it, with Hermione being kind of the mother, lover figure, Paulina being kind of the witch, or I guess crone would be another word for it, and Perdita being the virgin. And this, in this chapter called "The Maiden Phoenix," the daughter redeems the father. You've changed Leontes from through this kind of 16 years and the stepping down off the plinth. You've changed Leontes from this very kind of misogynistic, controlling, destructive figure, and you've changed him into someone who could perhaps have proper kind of caring love. She contrasts it with the hero story, which I kind of question, with the idea of the hero is only the individual is reborn and not the group, versus feminine spirit stands can stand with the enemy and nurture a perpetrator. And it takes the work of art, 3 women, and in collaboration with a good man to make the change the world needs. Now, you could probably kind of say something even like kind of the Christian kind of story of Christ redeeming the world is a hero journey, where it's definitely not just Christ who's changing, but I'm sure Christians would argue he's changing a lot. He's changing the entire world in that, and that he's trying to gather in everyone into that sort of change. But that was an interesting interpretation of it. I definitely enjoy her when she's like, what choices, what kind of spins she puts on plays. Emma Smith talks about I've been talking about kind of these redemptive, really positive endings to this play, but Emma Smith actually makes a point of mentioning it's a Declan Dolan production, which she's actually quoting a review. But what she talks about is, in that production, how they present how they present Leontes, Hermione, and Perdita at the end are as isolated figures, as isolated figures. Leontes and Hermione broken by time, Perdita penitent at their feet. It's like yes, it's like the gates of the Garden of Eden aren't going to open again. The damage that's been done, what this production apparently does, is has the very young, ghostly figure of a mammalian, the dead child that they will always have the memory of, that what the father did caused the death of their child, kind of wander onto the stage, kind of wander towards them, but then have the chorus figure of time come and gently but firmly escort the child off the stage. That's always going to be there. That and that makes for a much less romantic and redemptive figure of the play. And while that certainly wasn't my reaction as I read it this time, I could also see being completely devastated in a different way if I'd seen a kind of production of that, or even if I just kind of start playing that idea in my mind. And I think I'll end off with some words from Emma Smith, because I've really enjoyed her readings, her suggestions, her questions of the plays. That she's saying that the plays texts are prompts that don't answer the questions that they raise, and that critics, directors, and readers, they make provisional, contingent, answers to these questions. They come up with that kind of like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that kind of things. And she ends that lecture, Approaching Shakespeare, which is what I will point you towards, saying, urging her students to find productions, watch different productions of these plays, listen to different reviews, watch different videos online about these plays, because there's so many different answers that can happen, and that's probably the most beautiful thing about Shakespeare, and the richest thing. It's like I can have my answer of, oh God, of like that feeling of having a second chance, and that really touching me. But then also just thinking about Mammalian, this ghostly child wandering on stage, and time escorting him off, and that always being something between Hermione and Leontes is also something that is like, that's another answer, and it's a beautiful one. So yes, thank you again. Thank you, Jason, who this was his choice of plays, of doing this play this time, and I'm going to off to actually watch his video now about that. I always want to wait until afterwards to watch other people's videos, because I want to see what comes out in my own interactions with stuff, and hopefully bring something to it. I may be repeating everything that he said, or maybe completely contradicting what he said, and go, oh yeah, those are good points, Jason, because they always are good points. I will put a link down below to his video, because he always does. And he has a special guest. He has the international super best-selling greatest star of the internet, Kelly, at Books I'm Not Reading, as his very special guest. I don't know how he was able to actually get her to appear on his channel. It's quite the coup. So yes, you should totally check that out. More videos later.